So this is the bread book that I use, that I got the garden herb book out of. How to go from a bread machine kneading to baking in the oven. That was just experimenting, and you may have to play around with it a little bit too, because it's going to depend upon your bread machine and it's going to depend upon your oven. But I absolutely love this book. I haven't found a bad recipe in it yet, and it has got a lot of them in it. It's still available on Amazon, but it isn't out of print. They're not printing it anymore. How to proof your yeast. You take 1/4 cup of water, heat it up to between 100 and 110 degrees. Add 2½ teaspoons of active dry yeast, and it has to be the active. This will not work with instant. Instant, you just automatically add to the product. 1 teaspoon of sugar. Give it a stir. You can see the bubbles starting to form, and then the magic happens. And you have just proofed your yeast that it is good to go. Okay, today we are going to be making garden herb bread. I'm going to be using white bread flour for this bread. I already have in the container 1 1/4 cups of water. I have already got the yeast in with it, and it was 3 teaspoons of active yeast. If you want to make sure that your yeast is good, check out the short that I put up for how to proof yeast. And you know what? I may actually link it into this video too. So next comes the white bread flour, and I do like to sift mine in for it. I think it makes a better, lighter, fluffier bread. Let me get it here. And it doesn't take long to do it. So that's 1 cup. And I'm the only one that's going to be eating this, so I'm okay with my hands being on it. Here is number 2. I feel like I'm using white powdered sugar. And then for cup number 3, the reason I went ahead and put the yeast in first, because so many bread machine recipes call for it to be the last thing put in, is usually salt is toward the end. And I'm sorry about the cat. I'm going to get rid of him in just a second here. Back away, Pumpkin. Shoo, 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 kitty. Okay. Hang on here. Let me get the flour in and I'll move the cat. Real life baking here, guys. Get rid of the cat. I'll wash my hands real quick. Whoops. All right, there you go. Okay. Getting back to where I was at. One of the reasons that I put the salt in, the yeast in first, the salt toward the end, is that salt will kill the yeast. So I want to make sure that they have a good layer in between them. Okay, so next it is going to be the sugar. I already have 1 teaspoon of sugar in there, so I'm going to add 1 more to make 1 whole tablespoon. And here's my other tablespoon. So it's 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then we're going to put the salt in, and it's 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. My 1 teaspoon. This is the Redmond salt from the Great Salt Lakes. It's from Utah. Shh, quiet. It's okay. Bentley, hush. I mean it. Hush. It is probably one of the best salts. It has got no decaking added to it, so it is just the natural salt. There's no iodine in it. Next is going to be the butter, and with this butter, I'm just going to pick it up and put it in this way. It is 2 tablespoons, and I did go ahead and cut that up some. Then comes our spices. Excuse the noise, that is Pumpkin, who was sleeping until I got ready to film this. So it is 1/2 tablespoon, and I do actually have a 1/2 tablespoon here. And this is the thyme. And I have got 1/2 tablespoon of the marjoram, which is this one. And 1/2 tablespoon of the chives. And where did I put my chives at? Did I not bring them over here? Hang on just a minute by the time I go get my chives. Okay, it is working on the first rise, and I want you to see how that comes, and I don't get anything on my hands. That is the way that it is supposed to look. This is how it should look. If you can see how thin the sides are getting. I will check it whenever it stops just to see how tacky it is and see if it needs some more flour added to it. Okay, so I did have to put some more flour on that. I thought I had the camera on and I didn't. So what you want to do at this point is just kind of knead it. You don't want to be really aggressive with it, but turn it, fold it, turn it, and fold it. And you want to do this for probably about a minute. I'm not going to do it that long because, like I said, I thought I had the camera on and I didn't. What I did do, though, was spray my bowl with some cooking oil. You can use any type. You can use olive, you can use Pam, you can use avocado spray in it. But what that does is as the dough rises, it's not going to stick to the edges and it gives you a much more even rise to it. I'm going to cover this up with a towel and then I'll check it in about 30 minutes and it should have doubled in size. And what I might do is, because my house isn't very warm, I've got my dehydrator going with grains in it, and I may take this down and just set it right on top of that so it's got that little extra heat to it. So I will see you guys in just a little bit. Okay, so this is after a 20-minute rise. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of pour it out onto here. We're just gonna kind of deflate it just a little bit. And then I am going to wind up, just trying to keep that even like that. I'm gonna divide it into 2 parts here because we're gonna do 2 different loaves. I think that's probably about even. So this one can go back in the bowl. This one I'm going to knead it just a little bit more. Try and pinch the edges together. Then I'm going to take my rolling pin and scoot my pan over just a little bit more. And you want to start in the center and roll out. And you can flour the rolling pin so that it doesn't stick. But the idea with doing a French bread style is to try and get this, get that out, so that it's more rectangular. And then we will end up rolling it up together, and for some odd reason that seems to give it a lighter, fluffier bread texture to it. Yep, and that's my stove where it has preheated. And I did, when I sprayed my baguette pan, I sprayed it over here where I'm rolling out the dough, so it's got that on it, and then I did put just a little bit of flour. It's not going to be very rectangular, is it? Just take my fingers, just kind of see if I can. And this did a great job. I just set it on top of my dehydrator. My dehydrator is going at 100 and I think 13. I've got the greens in it. You can go up to, I think it's 125 when dehydrating greens. So that just, the top of it just gave this some extra heat to help it rise. Okay, so what I think we're gonna do is just a little bit more. Just kind of start rolling it like this so that the widest part is, we can just kind of stretch it out just a little bit. You want to be a little bit on the gentle side. You don't want to be really aggressive with this. Our seam, kind of pinch it a little bit. It's going to be on the bottom, so nobody will really see that. And you want to pinch and tuck. Pinch and tug. I don't know if you can see that. Pinch it and then just kind of tuck it under. I'm going to try and stretch this out just a little bit again. And I'm just going to lay this in the pan. We'll get this one out. Get it on it. Do just a little bit of a knead. And I think what I'm going to do is take this back down because I'm going to let it rise one more time. I'm going to take it back down to the dehydrator and see if that will help out with the rise in this. I'm going to roll it out. Remember, start at the center and roll it. And that goes for whatever direction you decide to roll it into. I should have made pizza dough out of this. I didn't think about that. I've been wanting a pizza. Roll over there. Kind of work it out. I'm not pushing down real hard on this. When we do bake this, it's going to be at 375. I'm going to check it after 30 minutes in there and see how it looks. And then leave it in if it needs more to it. I am going to, you know, I didn't get my egg wash out. I like to do a yolk and egg white wash on these. It will give it a darker, richer color to it. If you like a lighter color, just use the egg whites. Don't leave the yolk in it. So let's go ahead and just start rolling this. You don't have to do a real tight roll on it. And kind of pinch the seam here a little bit. Turn it over, and then do your pinch and tuck. Pinch it and tuck it, and you can just kind of stretch it out some. Try and keep it kind of uniform. I did some yesterday with this dough as a trial because I've only made baguettes, and that's like a 2-day process. I've never actually made the French bread style to it, where you just roll it like this and bake it. And it turned out really good. It wasn't very even. I was in a hurry whenever I did it, and I didn't take the time that I am here. Okay, and get my egg wash, and I will be right back. So I've got my egg beaten up. I'm just going to swish my brush in it a little bit, and I'm going to turn this a little bit on its side, just so I can get the sides of it with this. You could actually do this partway through the baking if you wanted to. You don't have to do it at the beginning. That is just how I was taught to do it. Be in there. Over. Get it done. And let me just flip this around. Just flip it on its side again. And you can do this lightly or heavier. The heavier you do it, the darker your bread is going to look. And it gives it actually a really nice crust finish to it. Get the ends there. Okay, so I'm going to go take this down there. I'm not going to cover it up again because of the egg wash on it. Maybe I should have done the rising first and then put the egg wash on it, but I'll bring it back out and show you how much it So rose. Putting them in just the pre-warmed oven and letting them rise, look at the difference that's happened in that. Bread is out of the oven. I had it in for 35 minutes at 375. And this crust is just amazing. I wish you guys, you can hear the tap. I wish you could feel it. As soon as it cools, I will cut into it. I learned actually like within the last year that to keep the center from getting doughy, that you need to let the bread cool down completely and then cut into it. It's really hard resisting cutting into a warm loaf of bread fresh out of the oven though. Get you guys in just a few minutes. Okay, so the bread is cooled off. We're going to do the first cut on it. Another thing that this type of bread, this style, would be good for is if you wanted to do like a sub sandwich or a hoagie sandwich with it. You could actually make these smaller and actually make your own hot dog buns with it. But I want you to take a look at all these air pockets. This is nice and soft on the inside. It has got the nice crust on the outside of it and all those air pockets. That is exactly how you want it to look. Okay, so here comes the taste test. This bread never disappoints. I have made it for years, but I've never made it in the French bread style before, and I'm thinking maybe this would be a really good pizza recipe too, pizza crust. It's nice and moist on the inside. It's got that crunch to the crust, but it is not difficult to bite through. The herbs, you can definitely taste them. That's not overpowering. Maybe for my taste, because I don't do salt, even a teaspoon of salt might be, sorry, I've got a kitten that's trying to get up here. Maybe even a teaspoon of salt might be just a little bit too much in it for me. But I would highly recommend it. I don't want to say it's an easy bread to make. It's an average bread to make, because sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. You can do everything perfectly right and it still doesn't turn out, but keep trying. It's well worth it.